Hey everyone, I'm Emily Washkovic. Nice to virtually meet you. And I am the founder of Bipolar Brought Balance. I figured it's best to start this channel with a little background on myself, and I guess I can just start with what's going on right now. About a week ago, I was laid off from my job. I've been at my company for 11 years, actually, to the date that I got let go. And I'm in a transition phase in my life. And as you can see, this area behind me is in a transition. I was trying to get my new background all set up to make this content, and of course, it turned into 8 million tasks. So, this background used to be my studio for a podcast that I hosted for 5 years called Behind the Review. The podcast was hosted through my job at Yelp. I was the small business expert for the company for a little over a decade. And the show Behind the Review featured conversations with business owners and entrepreneurs in a way that helped others learn about how to market their business, engage with customers, manage online reviews and reputation. So I have a lot of experience in video interviews, podcasting, storytelling, and I also have my own journey with mental health, which is something that occurred during my time at Yelp. I did some advocacy, I launched a blog, I have an Instagram handle, but I've never been able to fully commit to making mental health content because I've always had this full-time job that was consuming so much of my time. And like I mentioned, I was recently let go a little over a week ago, and I'm thinking about what I want to do next and how I want to spend my time. And telling my story, my mental health journey, and highlighting stories of successful entrepreneurs, leaders, athletes, executives, is a calling that I think I have. I think I have a lot to share from my own journey, but I also want to elevate voices of other people, whether they have a mental health diagnosis or just have had a life event that's caused them to realize they need to find balance and prioritize themselves and prioritize their mental wellness just as much as maybe their physical wellness. So, yeah, my goal is to create content to share my story. And today I was going to record some videos about my journey with mental health. And I started by trying to change my background. So, this was a print of a wallpaper design that Yelp did a couple of years ago with a paper company called Chasing Paper. And so this used to sit right up here on the wall. I wanted to change it out. I wanted to have a little bit of a different look before I started recording my mental health stuff. And so I had a new print that I was going to put in there, but when I went to pull the frame off the wall, I was reminded that I used those 3M stickers on here. So, anyway, I could have spent the next hour trying to make this work and going out and buying the stickies and all that, but my background will be nice the next time that I record. Today, I'm just going to tell you about myself and my journey. And yeah, then I'm going to hit stop record and tell you about something else in a little while later. So, anyway, no makeup on, background half done, stickies up there. That's not normally how I like to present myself frontward facing, but it feels very, I don't know, I guess fitting for the stage I'm going through. And I'm proud of myself for recording this and doing it with that on the wall instead of trying to fix it. So, anyway, some of my videos will be more polished. Some of them will probably even have a professional microphone. But today I knew I was going to be moving my head around and just talking. So, we're going to use our AirPod. Okay, let's start at the beginning. I am 36 years old. I'm a millennial. My name is Emily. I grew up in the Midwest. I come from a huge family. Both of my parents are one of six siblings. And so I have tons of aunts and uncles, tons of cousins, a very amazing built in network. I spent most of my time growing up here in Wisconsin. Had a couple of years where I lived in Pennsylvania through elementary and middle school, but Wisconsin is definitely what I would call and consider home. When I grew up here for middle and high school, I had a really normal upbringing. I played sports, I played music, My parents really kept us active and gave us lots of resources to do fun things and get experiences. I never really struggled with school. I never really struggled with mental health. I didn't feel any of those challenges in my life growing up. I went to UW Madison for school. I'm sure I'll talk more about the journey to deciding what school I wanted to go to. That's probably the first time I knowingly felt stress and anxiety was making that decision, applications, and then getting in and deciding where to go. But truthfully, if you look at my growing up, there was not any challenges, no mental health challenges, no physical health challenges really to speak of. And I had a great time in college. I kind of looked at a lot of maybe my highs or lows as normal college behavior. If you're not familiar, Wisconsin is a pretty drink heavy state. So alcohol and things like that were a part of college and were very normal. I'm saying these things just to kind of highlight that it masked a lot of what I now better understand to be mental health episodes or challenges. But the reality is, I didn't struggle growing up. And so went to Madison, got a job after, worked a couple of years. Then I moved out to San Francisco. I found a job opportunity there. Truly, that move was probably my first real manic episode, but of course, we didn't look at it that way, right? I wasn't in full-blown mania. I was someone in my 20s, excited, wanting to move to a big city, pursue a career. So it all seemed normal and positive to those people around me. I moved to San Francisco, got a job with a tech company. So this is 2014 now when I joined Yelp for the first time as a sales rep. And I loved it. I had 4 really great years living in San Francisco. I moved from sales into the business outreach department at Yelp, which really catapulted me into, at the time, my ideal career. I traveled about 50% of the time for work. I would host events, I would do public speaking, and I would educate business owners on the free tools available to make the most of their presence on Yelp. And I did that for many years. I then started dating my now fiance, and we did distance for about a year before I then moved back to the Midwest. So in 2018, I moved back to Wisconsin. Still was working for Yelp, so I was semi remote. I would go to Chicago sometimes for work, but I was still traveling quite a bit. And honestly, I just had this constant feeling that I was always working and that I was always going a mile a minute. And I was just grateful that I had the energy to do it. Well, I then got a puppy, and there's a lot more layers. Like the puppy was a part of it. This work project where I was trying to launch a social media account was a part of it. But ultimately, I started slowly over the course of about a week ramping up. And so what that looked like was phone calls with coworkers, ideas flowing, like writing things down in journals, notebooks. Everything was coherent, but it was a little inflated and also super fast. So, one example, if we just look at the Instagram, I was working on this project of launching a Yelp for Business Instagram. So Yelp already had a ton of social media accounts, Yelp New York, Yelp Miami, Yelp LA, that sort of thing. And we were going to launch an account specifically for business owners. We'd give tips and tools and advice for how to run their business and do marketing and reputation management. So I was coming up with a strategy for what content would be on this page and also how we would grow the account. And at that same time, I was posting pictures and videos of our brand new puppy and getting all this, excitement and response and reaction. And I suddenly thought that I was going to make my dog Instagram famous. And that was one of the things that my brain kind of attached to in this period of time. And so I'm going a mile a minute. I'm thinking of all these things. I'm trying to connect dots. I'm also physically moving around the city, showing off my puppy to everyone, seeing friends. I took time off work. And so people weren't necessarily concerned. I was 28 years old. So a lot of people would think, well, if you haven't had a mental health episode yet, you're not going to have one now. But I did. By day 6, I was in full blown mania. So much so to the point that I was pacing around my apartment saying, "I just need to sleep. I just wanna take a shower and go to sleep." And so I was naked for over an hour, but doing other things in my apartment, cleaning things up or whatever, and my fiancé, he was then my boyfriend, was so freaked out and did not understand what was happening or why I wasn't engaging like I normally would. And so he called my parents, and luckily I was living in Milwaukee at the time. My parents came down to our apartment, and I was so detached from reality at that point that I didn't even know I was pacing naked when my dad was in my apartment. And I tell that part of the story to really highlight the disconnect from reality and how much you are not aware of what's happening around you when you are in full-blown mania. And there's obviously a range there, right? Like there's hypomania, there's the buildup, and sometimes people are manic and totally coherent. The state that I was in was full-blown mania. People trying to talk to me, and I was not able to process what they were saying and respond. I had so much going on in my own head that was making sense to me, but didn't make sense to anyone else. So my parents got to our apartment. They were very scared. They also could not believe the state of our apartment. It was like a bomb had gone off in there, and I'm a very like clean and cleanly person. And it wasn't Tony's fault. It was literally me going a mile a minute for a whole week, doing 8 million things at once, probably creating as much of a bomb in my apartment as I was cleaning one. So, okay, my parents get down to my place. They try to get clothes on me. They're able to get some of Tony's shorts and a sweater that's open in the front. So think of that too. Like I wasn't even coherent enough to know that if we're leaving my apartment, I want to be fully clothed. And this is in October, so it wasn't warm. My parents got me in the car. They didn't know what to do, but one of their friends said, just go to an ER, they'll help you. And so we drove to the emergency room. I remember bits and pieces of this, but not everything because I was so out of it. But I remember trying to think in my head, like, this is all connecting for me. How are they not understanding? What can I say to get them to understand? But to them, I mean, I was making absolutely no sense. And they were very scared. They had no idea what was going on. So they got me to the hospital, the emergency room. Honestly, this part I do remember. We drove up into the roundabout and they were trying to get me out of the car. And some of the security and police officers in the emergency room noticed that there was a little bit of like a struggle happening. So they came out to help my parents get me inside. The emergency room very quickly found me a room because, again, I was like barely clothed. And once they got me in there, I was actually trying to tell some of the healthcare professionals that I was doing a simulation. I was like an actor running a simulation for them. I had no idea what was going on. And they were saying to each other, like, stop listening to her. So ultimately, I had to be strapped down and sedated so that they could then go through the next phases to see what I needed. I was severely dehydrated. I mean, I hadn't been sleeping for a couple of days, and I definitely wasn't eating well or drinking water. And once they were able to sedate me, obviously they were able to figure out what was next and what to do. So, what I remember is I woke up the next day. So, went in on a Tuesday night to the hospital. Wednesday morning, I wake up. I'm still in the emergency room, and I'm told that I'm going to be taken by ambulance to the mental health hospital. I was really incoherent at this time, like, had been drugged up on sedation, and it was a voluntary check-in, like, I voluntarily signed myself into Rogers, but really, my parents found me the bed while I was sedated and getting, all my fluids and things like that, and then them and the practitioners are the ones that basically said, "This is what we're doing, this is what's next," and so I didn't have, like, time to fight back or say, "No, I don't wanna do this," and thank goodness I didn't, you know? Um, but my parents, I mean, they remember still being completely terrified, no idea what's going on. My mom rode in the ambulance with me to the mental health hospital, which is like a 30-minute drive from the emergency room I was in. My dad followed in the car, obviously, so that he could take my mom home after. And when they wheeled me in to Rogers, I was still like on the like dolly thing that they wheel a patient in. And I signed myself in, but again, I was very much so in this reality of being told this is the next step. I was given some more medication right when I got there and put in a room to sleep more. And then when I woke up about 24 hours after I was sedated and hospitalized, that's when I met my inpatient doctor and was told, you have bipolar disorder. Now, a couple of additional layers to this is that I do have family members who had mental health diagnoses before my episode. So that was kind of some of the guiding knowledge to get me to a bipolar disorder diagnosis. But the really important thing to note is if you are hospitalized because of a manic episode, that's automatically bipolar disorder diagnosis. And so that was my case. It was pretty like classic textbook as it goes. But the family history also added and made this more confident ability to diagnose. There's this other really interesting part of my story, which is that my inpatient doctor knew my dad and my dad's family from growing up. They went to parochial school, grade school, middle school together. And the reason this is such like a freaky and weird thing is he's an amazing doctor and I'm sure he takes great care of all of his patients. But the way that he treated me and the way that he forced me to stay in treatment was really incredible and saved me. And I don't know how that scenario might have gone down if I hadn't had a doctor that said, sure, you might be able to check yourself out, but I'm not going to let you leave. And so I just share that to say if anyone is watching and you went into inpatient and then you wanted to leave and you checked yourself out and you didn't go through treatment, I understand. I wanted to leave. As soon as I heard on Friday that if I didn't go home, I probably wasn't going home till Monday, I was freaking out. I didn't think it was serious enough. I didn't think I needed to be inpatient. I mean, I had all these thoughts about why it wasn't a big deal and why I didn't need to be in this hospital situation. But the reality is I did. And that was such a period of immense privilege. For one, working for a huge company with amazing insurance meant that not only did I get treatment at this incredible facility, but I wasn't being churned out of the system by my insurance. There was people in treatment who were not ready to move to the next phase or not ready to end treatment, but their treatment came to an end because their insurance said that was enough. We've covered enough. It's been long enough. And I'm talking about a couple days. I was inpatient for 6 days. For adults, inpatient is not a long-term solution. It's not residential typically. It's not like addiction treatment in that sense. Mental health treatment for adolescents is often residential. But with adults, and in my case, being inpatient was a temporary period to get the diagnosis, to start the medications, and then outpatient treatment was the biggest part of my journey. So I was hospitalized with a manic episode. I was then taken to Rogers Behavioral Health in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. It's an amazing organization. They have locations all around the country, but lucky for me, Oconomowoc is like where they started. It's their headquarters, it's their home base. And so I was inpatient. I remember going through treatment all day, like programming, but I was also still manic. I was buzzing, I was adjusting to medications. And so there's bits and pieces from that time period that I remember, and then there's parts that like are completely blank in my recollection. But what I do know is after leaving inpatient treatment, right away I had this desire to tell my boss and other people what I was going through. I didn't want to hide it. That was not my first inclination. Even though I was told by many people, you do not need to disclose this diagnosis to anyone. And I share that because I fully believe that for anyone going through this journey. If you don't want to share your diagnosis, if you don't feel you need to, especially for work or other things, you do not need to do that. No one needs to know except you. But for me, I felt like if other people knew, it would help me navigate it better. And I'm grateful to say that that has been the case. This has been 7 years now since I had my episode and was diagnosed. And I'm fortunate to have people in my life that look at that as information and not a downgrade to who I am as a person or my value or my credibility or anything. And I know that that's not true for everyone. Stigma exists. I see it all the time. And so if you don't feel comfortable sharing your diagnosis, I understand. But if you do, even with just a few people, I think sometimes you can find that comfort and support that you might be looking for just by having someone else aware of what you're navigating. So I had a manic episode. I was inpatient for 6 days. I received a bipolar disorder diagnosis. And then I was outpatient for 7 weeks. So instead of going to work every day, I went to treatment Monday through Friday from about 9 to 3. It was all different kinds of therapy in a group. And again, I was in there with people who, after a week or 10 days, their insurance would say, okay, your treatment's up. And I just couldn't believe that. I mean, the value of outpatient treatment to me was navigating my day to day life on these new medications while I'm learning about mental health, while I'm learning about how my brain functions, and then being able to process it in group. If I had had to go back to my regular life, to my job and work and everything right after my episode, I don't think I would be as balanced as I have been these past 7 years. And so I'm a firm believer in treatment. I know it's not accessible to everyone, but if you have the means, the time, the ability to get the help you need, I really do think it's immensely valuable. And so that was my introduction to mental health. I had a manic episode, I had some family knowledge and experiences, and then from there, I just had to kind of take over and figure my journey out. I got a psychiatrist and a therapist, and these are all things that Roger set up for me. So I had support, right? I had a social worker who basically had to ensure that things were set so that when I left the program, I could continue to the next phase. And that's immense privilege. I mean, that's how I was able to understand bipolar disorder, give myself grace. And I also always reflect on the fact that if I had been told I had bipolar disorder when I was younger, I wonder what limits I would have put on myself. I mean, I really don't know, but I believe that I probably would have. And so I'm grateful that I navigated so much of my life not knowing, but I don't believe that I got bipolar disorder when I turned 28. I believe I've always had it. And I can see blips of it all throughout my life. And I can see ways that it positively impacted my life too. And so that's why I like to share my journey. That's why I like to talk about my experience because that serious life event made me wake up and realize that I needed to prioritize my mental health, that I needed to take care of myself and not wait until it was so severe and serious that I had no other choice. And so I slowly started learning more about bipolar disorder and anxiety and depression. And that helped me better navigate my day to day life. And I had a lot of people tell me I wasn't going to be able to go back to life as I knew it because of bipolar disorder. And in fact, I was able to, and I was able to actually be more successful because I learned to prioritize myself and my mental health. And so I began sharing about this journey about a year after my diagnosis. So in 2019, I shared about it quite frequently through about 2021. But in that period, I also launched this podcast for work called Behind the Review. And it was so much content creation and so much of my like emotional capacity that I stopped doing social media for mental health. I stopped doing blog posts. And when I was laid off a week or so ago, it felt like the universe's way of saying, now you're ready. Now you're ready to use this equipment and the knowledge that you have and everything you gained in these years of making a business podcast. Now it's time to do it for mental health. And the thing I'm excited about is not even just telling my story and talking about what I've learned and how I navigate things, but really elevating the voice of other people. And whether it's entrepreneurs or athletes or leaders, I want to talk about ways that they became aware they needed to take better care of themselves. And for some people, it might be an episode or diagnosis like me. But for some people, it might just be a life event. Maybe you had a baby and realized, I need to pay attention to this and prioritize my family a little more. And suddenly you're actually more effective in business or at work. Or maybe you got a different piece of health information. Maybe it's your physical health, not your mental health. And how has that caused you to shift priorities in a way that was an unlock? Because that's what I think happened for me. I had this episode, this intense diagnosis that could have been something that caused me to look at my life and make it smaller. But instead, it caused me to look at my life and make it bigger. And in ways, hope to help other people. Whether you've always known you have mental health disorders and you didn't want to talk about it because you thought it was a negative or you thought people would look down on you. Or maybe if you're curious if you have a mental health disorder or diagnosis, I'm a firm believer that you don't need one to take care of your mental health and to prioritize yourself. So keep that in mind. Subscribe to the channel if you want to hear about my journey, but also reach out to me. If you have a story you want to tell about mental health, if you know someone who has a great story, I'd love to talk to them. I'm really interested in sharing and hearing other people's journey and hopefully destigmatizing what so many of us deal with. I'll close out by saying that I was diagnosed with ADHD a few years after I received my bipolar disorder diagnosis. And that one was even more of an unlock when it came to understanding myself and being more effective. So I know there's a lot of people my generation with these late in life diagnoses of ADHD. I'm super excited to uncover that and talk about that. But in general, this is a space where I hope we can destigmatize and demystify mental health, whether you're going through it, you're supporting someone going through it. But I also want to empower those of us with mental health disorders or diagnoses because I think it's a superpower. I think that the way my brain works has helped me in so many ways, made me more successful in so many ways, made me a better friend and partner. And so that's what I want to do here on Bipolar Brought Balance. Tell you about my journey, what I've learned, what's working for me, what's not, what's been a challenge, what I'm failing at, and highlight other people who are crushing it in life, mental health diagnosis or not, because they're taking care of themselves. Yeah, that's a ramble. You're going to get that here on Bipolar Brought Balance. I probably won't edit my content as much as some other creators do, but that's my goal in these coming weeks is turn this camera on, turn the camera on my phone on and record, tell you about myself, tell you about my journey. So yeah, head to bipolar.balance.com. It's my blog. I'm getting it going again in January. I'm going to kind of batch all this content and start posting it in January. So if this video is live, that means it's January and more content is coming. So subscribe here, like the channel, share it with people. Go to bipolar.balance.com, subscribe to the newsletter, and definitely go to Instagram. Bipolar Brought Balance is the account there. I'd love for you to follow. Send me a message. Share it, subscribe. All right, y'all. See you soon.